What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Rasheer Fleming is a hot name in draft circles these days, and for good reason. He is a crazy defensive prospect who can switch onto small guards and pretty much mirror their movement exactly. Look at Fleming switching onto a 6-foot-ish guard. Kind of, he's not the most technically refined point of attack defender, but look at how fast his feet and hips move. He's changing directions with him and ends up contesting this shot into a miss. Fleming is one of the most insane tools guys I can remember in quite some time. We'll get into the exact measurements soon, but he is a menacing on-ball defender where Eric Dixon, who is a very good, much older scorer, gets totally walled off by Fleming's quick lateral burst. He's really low and balanced right here, so he's good at taking blows and not giving up that much space. And we're going to see Fleming once again just switched out onto the perimeter, getting a big block at the point of attack using his incredible length and wingspan right here. His feet move so fast in the initial back pedal, and then again, he's just swiveling and opening up his hips and blocking that shot really, really easily. And Fleming, even when he gets like a little bit over aggressive, has the crazy recovery tools. Like he just gets right up in this ball handler's grill, maybe a little too much so, and then he turns and chases. So he might have been vulnerable to a deceleration here, but Fleming able to snatch that ball and swat it off of the glass right there. And his ability to get around screens at this size is so damn impressive as well, where he's chasing a shooter around a screen here first and gets out there. Fleming's gonna blow through this screen, like just so physical and strong and powerful. Like he will just knock guys down and stay right on the hip of this ball handler, forces a pass out. He's gonna navigate another screen right here, this time a dribble handoff, and executes a switch really well with his teammate and ends up forcing a miss right here. That's the play right here where I have to open my app, where Fleming is going to switch onto the big right here while the drop defender takes number 5. It's like a classic peel switch right there. Late clock. Fleming does a great job executing, but you can see his incredible like point of attack movement. And I love this play too, where Darion Williams ends up making a tough shot, but Fleming does a good job again staying on his hip and using his length to force a pretty tough, wrong foot floating shot out of bounds from a good player in Darion Williams, but he just like throws JT Toppin away. Like maybe it's a foul, I don't know, but this is how Fleming deals with screens. He just throws them aside like they're absolutely nothing. And at this point, it's pretty effective. Like his perimeter defense potential is totally insane. I say potential because there's plenty of work to do, which we'll get into. What a crazy play. Like Fleming is definitely one of the highest ceiling perimeter defenders in terms of like on-ball stuff and like off-ball playmaking right here, where he reads this like twirl action really well, takes this player, denies the dribble handoff, and notice how his hands are always up in passing lanes, and you can see his crazy length and reach. He's always cutting off potential passing angles. He's just guarding, switching on the perimeter. And again, we see this same peel switch that St. Joe's does, where they have their big come up and Fleming take number 9. He's behind the play. Crazy recovery here, and you can just see the length on display. Fleming getting to that ball and blowing up the play. Ends up saving it and keeping it in balance. And he is such a demon in the passing lanes. Like really hard to pass around Rasheer Fleming because of how great his instincts and his length are. He's just kind of like sticking his hands up, and yeah, that's a pretty clear passing angle for a lot of players over top, but against Rasheer Fleming, like he has the length to just barely get to that ball and tip it to his teammate. He gets these deflections without even trying that hard. Like he is going to be a high up deflection steal player in the league, in my opinion, where this is a great play where he's reading this flare screen. That's what they're trying to set up here to counter like a heavy nail stun. This is something that NBA teams do a lot. Set this pin, but Fleming sees it the whole way, right? He jumps that pass and he uses his length to end up getting a steal. So Fleming's physical tools are truly freaky, like we've seen, but he is a very inconsistent defender, which worries me a little bit for him as an older guy. Um, he's able to like blow up these lobs as well, covering ground, ends up fouling there, but I'm not even sure if that was a foul, to be honest. Um, Maybe, I don't know, like handball, but point being, you can see his ability to cover ground, to just make these big time impacts or rotations, but Fleming is very much a work in progress on defense, and I do kind of worry about his awareness and floor processing. We're just talking about defense. This shows up on offense too, for sure, but Fleming does a good job contesting this shot into a miss. He's guarding and drop, which he did a fair amount with St. Joe's and was pretty effective at. Give him a lot of credit, right, for a 6'8" guy. But Fleming is just like a beater to has a couple major issues to me on defense. One is like the awareness and processing speed, right? He should be drifting over to help right now. He sees that his defender is getting beat to this spot, but Fleming waits until this guy's already at the paint to make his rotation, and he's late, and he ends up fouling there because he didn't rotate on enough time. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, he doesn't have the vertical athleticism to make up for his lack of processing at times. And Fleming can ball watch right here. He's just letting number 6 cut right behind him, and he kind of jumps at everything at this point. He's a very reactive defender, which does make sense considering the like insane level of playmaker that Rasheer Fleming is. He can do insane stuff as we've seen on defense, but his positioning where, this stuff definitely improves with age, and it gets better with experience. And Fleming isn't like so old. I think he's gonna be like 21 on draft day, which is like young for a junior for sure, but not super young by draft standards. And you see, instead of positioning himself back right here to guard number 4 right here, he goes for the steal, which he doesn't get. He loves to gamble, and then he goes for the steal right here and ends up fouling. So it's not as much sound positioning as it is just kind of going for steals and trying his best. And his closeouts are mostly pretty sloppy at this stage, where again we see Fleming here playing low man tag, which is fine. He's tagging up JT Toppin so they can't pass the interior. That's totally fine. And he gets out right there, but I'm not really sure what's going on. Like, he tries to slow down, ends up taking these steps, and just lets number 0 go right by him and isn't able to recover. So, yeah, the closeout technique isn't great, and his screen navigation when he can't just plow through people isn't the greatest because he's kind of stiff, or I don't think he necessarily has the bend like some players to get his torso more parallel to the ground and like bend around these screens, and his footwork isn't really refined enough either. So even against smaller guys, Fleming sometimes gets caught and ends up giving up an open 3. Of course, he's still able to offer like some contest even from behind a screen because of his crazy length and recovery tools, and maybe that impacted the miss, who knows. But Fleming definitely not a perfect defender in terms of his kind of patience and awareness and all of that stuff, but his reach is truly insane and makes up for a lot of errors that Fleming makes, where he gets so many of these blocks like without even leaving the ground. Like, he is blocking this shot while his foot is still on the ground, and his physical tools are just absurd. He ranked fourth at the combine in wingspan, 7'5", standing 6'8", 25. That is good for a 9-inch wingspan differential. And if we look in the NBA, shout out Crafted NBA, awesome website, like, he would instantly be top 10 in the league in wingspan differential. And there are very few guys actually like him size-wise, like Robert Williams, kind of. Isaiah Stewart is a close-ish comparison. And usually just in terms of raw wingspan, like 7'5", 2'5", or 7'5", 2'5", right? He's almost top 20 in the league. I think he might actually be 7'5" and then get to top 18. But you see, like he's a wing, right? Most of these guys are centers. There are very few wings, and I think he's honestly going to enter the NBA as the longest non-big in the league. And I think part of the question is, like, why can't he be a big, right? He has this crazy reach, and even though he's not that tall, he had a pretty good block rate, like just above 5 this year. And again, you can see like the kind of stuff he can just generally do without even jumping or leaving his feet, where he slides down here and is able to just kind of poke this ball out with his length without actually having to jump or contest or risk a foul or anything. And he's a great post defender at the college level because he can just get crazy high. And again, you can see he barely gets off the ground here, but he's still almost at the basket or just about at the basket with his standing reach here, blocking that hook shot. Robbie Avila here just not going to get anything on Fleming's length. Gets the offensive rebound and still can't get anything on Fleming's length, who just swats that ball away. Like, he is a gigantic basketball player who is really good at blocking shots. And yeah, you can just see like the crazy reach here. It's insane. This is just an insane visual looking at how high up his arms go and how high he's able to go to get that ball. And again, considering this wasn't like a perfect rotation either. Like, he was drifting out of the paint. But yeah, quick plant off of his inside foot, 1-2 into that block. And yeah, his reach, like we've been saying, is completely absurd. It is just comical how high Rasheer Fleming can get at times to make these help blocks. Yeah, just parking at the rim. He's pretty good at like turning his body around in midair. Like, he's facing this way when he jumps, right? But when he blocks the shot, he's facing this way. So that's a full like 90-degree rotation here to track that ball in midair and get the block. Like, he has decent foul rates. He fouls a good amount, but it's definitely, his foul rates have decreased every year. And the stuff that he can do as a recovery shot blocker, like, again, poor closeout here, just like leaning too forward. I don't know what the hell kind of footwork he's gotten himself into, but yeah, able to recover and block that shot just because of the crazy reach guy he is. But I'm honestly pretty skeptical of Fleming at the 5 at the next level. And the main reason for that, aside from his like reaction time, which is a major issue, is his vertical athleticism, which is really just not that great. Going back to the combine data, and I have, combine data doesn't matter much to me, but it can be interesting just to like test priors. And if we look at standing vertical leap, which is really important, right? Just being able to jump out of a back pedal to quickly get up and protect the rim without a big like runway to swoop in, right? And Fleming is towards the bottom. It's 27-inch vertical. That's, less than a guy like Kobe Brea, less than a guy like Will Riley. Like, it's not great. And, well, again, combine numbers aren't the be-all, end-all. You can see, like, shuttle run Fleming is second, right? Which makes sense because of his insane change of direction at point of attack. But it's just interesting to look at more than something that's really means a ton to me. But I do think it checks out on film here, where the comparison when he's going against a really explosive NBA athlete like JT Toppin is pretty apparent. Like, just watching these guys' feet, watching how they load, watching how high they get off the ground, how quickly they get to their spot right here. Like, the explosiveness difference between Toppin and Fleming is massive, and of course that leads to Fleming fouling in a situation like this. But this shows up at the college level to me, and despite like the all-time physical tools, he only had like a 5-ish block rate across his career. I think it was at 6% last year, which is not like incredible by any means, because he isn't that explosive, like we said, out of a back pedal in short spaces. We can see like his feet don't get that far off the ground right here, and he gets scored on for the and one by that player right there. Fleming again, and we can also see against an NBA defender, an NBA body like Yaxel Lendeborg, who gets downhill. Fleming stunts at him and just isn't able to get high enough, fast enough off the ground against Yaxel, who is also like crazy long and strong and explosive and athletic, and he isn't able to make a contest and just ends up fouling, obviously, right there. So I'm a little worried about his rim protection really translating to the NBA level, like we said, because of the size and like the height. While not everything, definitely does matter, right? It just means he's not going to be able to match up with some taller players, and yeah, he's just not super imposing at the basket. Where this is kind of a good possession for some of the good and the bad stuff Fleming does, where he's defending De'Aaron Williams. He's covering ground, switching, getting out there, flipping his hips, and totally beats De'Aaron Williams to this spot. But you can see like a trade-off of this really like wide base he likes to present himself is like, it's not a crazy explosive stance. Like, go outside and put your feet, or stand up and put your feet this wide and try to like jump as high as you can. And of course Fleming like sticks his feet together. So there's definitely some footwork stuff here that I think can possibly improve his vertical and perimeter defense. But I don't think Fleming is like a 5 defender, which to me lowers his value a good bit. I've seen a lot of Rasheer Fleming hype, and I do understand it to some extent. what he can do on defense, as we've been showing, plus like he's a pretty good shooter as well. I don't think there was much out of on offense outside of shooting and play finishing, and this was a video about his defense. Just 'cause I think his offense is simpler and a lot more limited. It's just like, is he going to be a good shooter? If so, he probably works. If not, he probably doesn't. But Fleming's defense, I think, is so interesting to talk about because he has such incredible strengths and positives with the physical tools and his ability to move and change directions and guard the ball. But there are some real negatives where it's his awareness and processing speed and his closeouts being an issue. And then, of course, the vertical explosiveness for, I feel like a team wanting to draft Rasheer Fleming and use him like an Isaiah Stewart or a Jared Allen or someone like that, or Robert Williams even, I'm not sure they'd have that kind of success because of the differences and obviously strength too, which is, Fleming is 21 and can still definitely add strength for sure. But the differences in vertical explosiveness and also just like, especially with the guy like Allen, like the timing and technique as a rim protector. But I think Fleming, when projected as a wing defender, is a phenomenal bet and one of the highest ceiling perimeter defensive players in the league. I don't think he has the ceiling to be a really potent interior defender, but this is a guy who I could see at his ceiling making all defense teams as just like a crazy point of attack, turnover generator, versatile on-ball guy. And reaching that ceiling is far from a guarantee. Like, I could totally see a world where Fleming doesn't end up working in the league because the offense washes out and he has too many defensive errors. But he's a really fun player to watch, and I'm very excited to just see how he continues to grow because of how unique of a build he has and some of the stuff that he can do. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I really do love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day.